In the ancient world, leprosy was a very real and a very scary illness. Leprosy may have been an umbrella term that encompassed a variety of skin diseases, but the thing we most often think about is what's understood today as Hansen's disease. Really an awful illness that really eats away at the body and ultimately would kill you. Now today, with the advent of antibiotics, we don't have the same issues with it, but we can still imagine how terrible of a disease it is. And it's fairly highly communicable through bodily fluids, and so it's a real challenge. There was this fear that if you touched a leper, you would get it yourself. And for some, it may have actually been that way. Some saliva somewhere and passed on to someone else. That's a very real possibility. But the danger of it is why in the Old Testament, there's multiple chapters in the book of Leviticus dedicated to how to deal with someone suspected of having leprosy. And the priests would have to examine them, and if you want to get really grossed out, you can read all of chapter 13 of the book of Leviticus. It explains all sorts of colors and hairs and open wounds and all sorts of things like that. But the examination would take place. If a person was suspected of having leprosy, they would have to quarantine. And in order to get out of quarantine, if somebody were, actually healed of whatever illness or disease they had of the skin, there was a prescription there as well to be examined by the priest, to offer particular sacrifices, and so be restored to the community. You can see the effects of having leprosy. You're cut off from the rest of the community. You don't get to see your family, your friends, the rest of the people of the community. But as well, you're cut off from worship in the temple as well. As unclean, you can't come to the worship, to the temple and worship. And that image, it's really good, looking into the spiritual realm. What does sin do to us? It cuts us off from one another. It establishes division between people, but it also establishes division between us and God. But just like Jesus reached out and touched the leper and healed him, so he has the power to reach out and touch our hearts, to heal and restore them, to restore what was once divided between us and others, to restore what was once divided between us and God. In the same way, the same longing of the heart of the leper for Jesus to heal him. If you will it, Lord, you can make me clean. So the desires of our hearts should be. But as well, not just the desire, but knowing the reality of Jesus reaching out in turn and saying, I do will it, be made clean. And as he touches our hearts, to know the reality of living in communion with him. So that's the thing for everybody that I think we really need to take in this week, that Jesus desires to heal you, and he does heal you. He reaches out to touch your heart and restore it to its fullness. But as well, I can't help but think as I look at these readings too, and think about the sin of spirit, or the spiritual leprosy that I'm examining. That, during this time of the pandemic, there are so many who are experiencing being cut off from the community and being cut off from God, but it's not the same situation. Regardless of what you feel that you need to do in terms of staying away from other people or staying away from church, the reality is God has not, cut you off from him because of the present situation in the world. No matter where you are, no matter what freedom you have to come to church or be with other people, the reality is God looks at you with great compassion and wishes to reach out and touch your heart and restore it to joy and light and laughter and peace as well. That you might experience the healing you so need. So no matter where you are, whether you're experiencing the divisions of sin or just the divisions of life in the present situation, go to the Lord this week. And see him in front of you, looking with great compassion. And say, Lord, if you will it, you can make me clean. But don't just get in touch with the desire of your heart. Know his response, reaching into your heart and touching it, and restoring it, and saying the words, and having the reality come forth. I do will it. Be made clean.